nice things to be either reminded of or to hear for the first time. So, I am going to open up this little book. I might actually take this book jacket off so it'll be easier to flip the pages with. Okay, so now we've got just the book. It's a little hard book, which is honestly really cute. The book itself is like the color, like super pale mustard or like avocado color. Yeah, like avocado maybe. With just the black print on it. Again, it's like, I don't know, maybe like 3 inches big with a red satin bookmark in it. So I'm just gonna open it up and read the pages. So there is a foreword by Joanne Rogers, which I believe is his wife, so I will start with that. There were always quotes tucked away in Fred's wallet, next to his neatly folded bills, or in the pages of his daily planner book. Perhaps he liked having words of wisdom close to him, as if he wanted or needed to be constantly reminded of what was important in life. The outside world may have thought his qualities of wisdom and strength came naturally to him, but those close to him knew that he was constantly striving to be the best that he could be. He was as human as the rest of us. The person Fred became in his later years came out of growth and struggle. As he got older, it seemed as if the nurturing of his soul and mind became more and more important. If I were asked for 3 words to describe him, I think those words would be courage, love, and discipline, perhaps in that very order. When I think of the entire persona of Fred Rogers, my inclination is to put him on a very high pedestal, despite the frailties that are part of being human. Oh, did I mention what a kind person he was? I suppose that is part of everyone's experience of Fred, even those who knew him for only a couple of minutes. I don't mean to sound boastful, but he was my icon before he was anyone else's. Being Mrs. Fred Rogers has been the most remarkable life I could have ever imagined. So, it looks like there may be broken into like little chapters. So this first one is titled The Courage to Be Yourself. Discovering the truth about ourselves is a life's time work, but it's worth the effort. Some days doing the best we can may still fall short of what we would like to be able to do, but life isn't perfect on any front, and doing what we can with what we have is the most we should expect of ourselves or anyone else. Confronting our feelings and giving them appropriate expression always takes strength, not weakness. It takes strength to talk about our feelings and to reach out for help and comfort when we need it. Who you are inside is what helps you make and do everything in life. Whatever we choose to imagine can be as private as we want it to be. Nobody knows what you're thinking or feeling unless you share it. How many times have you noticed that it's the little quiet moments in the midst of life that seem to give the rest extra special meaning? When my mother or my grandmother tried to keep me from climbing too high, my grandfather trusting me so much. It's not the honors and the prizes and the fancy outside of life that ultimately nourish our souls. It's the knowing that we can be trusted, that we never have to fear the truth, that the bedrock of our very being is firm. Solitude is different from loneliness, and it doesn't have to be a lonely kind of thing. You rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices, and hopefully your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are. All life events are formative. All contribute to what we become year by year as we go on growing. As my friend, the poet Kenneth Koch once said, you aren't just the age you are all the ages you ever have been. I've often hesitated in beginning a project because I've thought it'll never turn out to be even remotely like the good idea I have as I start. I could just feel how good it could be, but I decided that for the present, I would create the best way I know how and accept the ambiguities. I believe it's a fact of life that what we have is less important than what we make out of what we have. The same holds true for families. It's not how many people there are in a family that counts, but rather the feelings among the people who are there. When I was a boy, I used to think that strong meant having big muscles, great physical power. But the longer I live, the more I realize that strength has much more to do with what is not seen. Real strength has to do with helping others. The thing I remember best about successful people I've met all through the years is their obvious delight in what they are doing, and it seems to have very little to do with worldly success. They just love what they're doing, and they love it in front of others. Little by little, we human beings are confronted with situations that give us more and more clues that we aren't perfect. All our lives, we rework the things from our childhood, like feeling good about ourselves, managing our angry feelings, being able to say goodbye to people we love. The child is in me still, and sometimes not so still. This next section is titled Understanding Love. Understanding love is one of the hardest things in the world. Deep within us, no matter who we are, there lies a feeling of wanting to be lovable, of wanting to be the kind of person that others like to be with, and the greatest thing we can do is to let people know that they are loved and capable of loving. Love isn't a state of perfect caring. It is an active noun like struggle. To love someone is to strive to accept that person exactly the way he or she is, right here and now. Each generation, in its turn, is a link between all that has gone before and all that comes after. That is true genetically, and it is equally true in the transmission of identity. Our parents gave us what they were able to give, and we took what we could of it and made it part of ourselves. We, in turn, we can of ourselves to our children and their offspring. It's the people we love the most who can make us feel the gladdest and the maddest. Love and anger are such a puzzle. If the day ever came when we were able to accept ourselves and our children exactly as we and they are, then I believe we would have come very close to an ultimate understanding of what good parenting means. It's part of being human to fall short of that total acceptance, and often far short. But one of the most gifts a parent can give a child is the gift of accepting that child's uniqueness. It always helps to have people we love beside us when we have to do difficult things in life. One of my wise teachers, Dr. William F. Orr, told me, "There's only one thing evil cannot stand, and that is forgiveness." Love and trust in the space between what's said and what's heard in our life can make all the difference in the world. There's something unique about being a member of a family that really needs you in order to function well. One of the deepest longings a person can have is to feel needed and essential. Actor David Carradine, son of John Carradine, said in gratitude of his father's accomplishments, "I could stand on his shoulders and feel twice as tall. That each generation could stand on the shoulders of the last and feel twice as tall is a poetic hope for all our families." The gifts we treasure most over the years are often small and simple. In easy times and in tough times, what seems to matter most is the way we show those nearest us that we've been listening to their needs, to their joys, and to their challenges. As parents, we need to try to find the security within ourselves to accept the fact that children and parents won't always like each other's actions, but we need to know at the same time that moments of conflict have nothing to do with whether parents and children really love one another. It's our continuing love for our children that makes us want them to become all they can be, capable of making sound choices. Forgiveness is a strange thing. It can sometimes be easier to forgive our enemies than our friends. It can be hardest of all to forgive people we love. Like all of life's important coping skills, the ability to forgive and the capacity to let go of resentments most likely take root very early in our lives. In times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts, and to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers. One of the strongest things we have to wrestle with in our lives is the significance of the longing for perfection in ourselves and in the people bound to us by friendship or parenthood or childhood. The greatest gift you ever give is your honest self. It's not always easy for a father to understand the interests and ways of his son. It seems the songs of our children may be in keys we've never tried. The melody of each generation emerges from all that's gone before. Each one of us contributes in some unique way to the composition of life. I believe that infants and babies whose mother others give them loving comfort whenever and however they can are truly the fortunate ones. I think they're more likely to find life's times of trouble manageable, and I think they may also turn out to be the adults most able to pass loving concern along to the generations that follow after them. Learning and loving go hand in hand. My grandfather was one of those people who loved to live and loved to teach. He'd help me find something wonderful in the smallest of things, and ever so carefully, he helped me understand the enormous worth of every human being. In the external scheme of things, shining moments are as brief as the twinkling of an eye, yet such twinklings are what eternity is made of. Moments when we human beings can say, I love you, I'm proud of you, I forgive you, I'm grateful for you. That's what eternity is made of. Invisible, imperishable, good stuff. We need to help people to discover the true meaning of love. Love is generally confused with dependence. Those of us who have grown in true love know that we can love only in proportion to our capacity for independence. Love is like infinity. You can't have more or less infinity, and you can't compare two things to see if they're equally infinite. Infinity just is, and that's the way I think love is too. Human relationships are primary in all of living. When the gusty winds blow and shake our lives, if we know that people care about us, we may bend with the wind, but we won't break. When we love a person, we accept him or her exactly as is. The lovely with the unlovely, the strong along with the fearful, the true mixed in with the facade, and of course, the only way we can do it is by accepting ourselves that way. The next section is titled, The Challenges of Inner Discipline. Imagining something may be the first step in making it happen, but it takes the real time and real efforts of real people to learn things, make things, turn thoughts into deeds or visions into inventions. Discipline is a teaching, learning kind of relationship, as the similarity of the word disciple suggests. By helping our children learn to be self-disciplined, we are also helping them learn how to become independent of us, as sooner or later they must. And we are helping them learn how to be loving parents to children of their own. How great it is when we come to know that times of disappointment can be followed by times of fulfillment, that sorrow can be followed by joy, that guilt over falling short of our ideals can be replaced by pride in doing all that we can, and that anger can be channeled into creative achievements and into dreams that we can make come true. I like to swim, but there are some days I just don't feel much like doing it, but I do it anyway. I know it's good for me, and I promised myself I'd do it every day, and I like to keep my promises. That's one of my disciplines, and it's a good feeling after you've tried and done something well. Inside you think, I've kept at this and I've really learned it, not by magic, but by my own work. What makes the difference between wishing and realizing our wishes? Lots of things, and it may take months or years for a wish to come true, but it's far more likely to happen when you care so much about a wish that you'll do all you can to make it happen. A young apprentice applied to a master carpenter for a job. The older man asked him, "Do you know your trade?" "Yes, sir," the young man replied proudly. "Have you ever made a mistake?" the older man inquired. "No, sir," the young man answered, feeling certain he would get the job. "Then there's no way I'm going to hire you," said the master carpenter, "because when you make one, you won't know how to fix it." There is no normal life that is free of pain. It's the very wrestling with our problems that can be the impetus for our growth. It came to me ever so slowly that the best way to know the truth was to begin trusting what my inner truth was and trying to share it, not right away, only after I had worked hard at trying to understand it. The great poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and learn to love the questions themselves." There's an old Italian proverb, "The person who goes quietly goes with health and goes far." Hurrying up and using a lot of shortcuts doesn't get us very far at all. I wrote in a song that in the long, long trip of growing, there are stops along the way. It's important to know when we need to stop, reflect, and receive. In our competitive world, that might be called a waste of time. I've learned that those times can be the preamble to periods of enormous growth. What makes the difference between wishing and realizing our wishes? Lots of things, of course, but the main one, I think, is whether we link our wishes to our active work. It may take months or years, but it's far more likely to happen when we care so much that we'll work as hard as we can to make it happen. And when we're working toward the realization of our wishes, some of our greatest strengths come from the encouragement of people who care about us. When we can resign ourselves to the wishes that will never come true, there can be enormous energies available within us for whatever we can do. Feeling good about who we are doesn't come just from people telling us they like us. It comes from inside of us, knowing when we've done something helpful, or we've worked hard to learn something difficult, or when we've stopped just when we are about to do something we shouldn't, or when we've been especially kind to someone else. Along with the times we're feeling good about who we are, we can experience times when we're feeling bad about who we are. It's true that we take a great deal of our own upbringing on into our adult lives and our lives as parents, but it's true too that we can change some of the things that we would like to change. It can be hard, but it can be done. As work grows out of play, an attitude toward work grows with it, an attitude that may persist all through our work-day life. That attitude can have a lot to do with how we accept challenges, how we can cope with failures, and whether we can find the inner fulfillment that makes working in and of itself worthwhile. The next section is titled, "We Are All Neighbors." From the song, "Won't You Be My Neighbor?" I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? It's no secret that I like to get to know people, and not just the outside stuff of their lives. I like to try to understand the meaning of who people are and what they're saying to me. As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have. Something inside that is unique to all of time. It's our job to encourage each other to discover that uniqueness and to provide ways of developing its expression. When I was very young, most of my childhood heroes wore capes, flew through the air, or picked up buildings with one arm. They were spectacular and got a lot of attention. But as I grew, my heroes changed, so that now I can honestly say that anyone who does anything to help a child is a hero to me. We want to raise our children so that they can take a sense of pleasure in both their own heritage and the diversity of others. When you combine your own intuition with a sensitivity to other people's feelings and moods, you may be close to the origins of valuable human attributes such as generosity, altruism, compassion, sympathy, and empathy. Jane Addams, writing about her 20 years at Hull House, said, "People did not want to hear about simple things. They wanted to hear about great things, simply told." Music has given me a way of expressing my feelings and my thoughts, and it has also given me a way of understanding more about life. For example, as you play together in a symphony orchestra, you can appreciate that each musician has something fine to offer. Each one is different though, and you each have a different song to sing. When you sing together, you make one voice. That's true of all endeavors, not just musical ones. Finding ways to harmonize our uniqueness with the uniqueness of others can be the most fun and the most rewarding of all. If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of. There is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. Whether we're a preschooler or a young teen, a graduating college senior or a retired person, we human beings all want to know that we're acceptable, that our being alive somehow makes a difference in the lives of others. The real issue in life is not how many blessings we have, but what we do with our blessings. Some people may have many blessings and hoard them. Some have few and give everything away. The purpose of life is to listen to yourself, to your neighbor, to your world, and to God, and when the time comes, to respond in as helpful a way you can find, from within and without. Please think of the children first. If you ever have anything to do with their entertainment, their food, their toys, their custody, their day or night care, their health care, their education, listen to the children. Learn about them. Learn successive generation is invested in the welfare of each new generation. More and more, I've come to understand that listening is one of the most important things we can do for one another. Whether the other be an adult or a child, our engagement in listening to who that person is can often be our greatest gift. Whether that person is speaking or playing or dancing, building or singing or painting, if we care, we can listen. Peace means far more than the opposite of war. Beside my chair is a saying in French. It inspires me every day. What is essential is invisible to the eyes. The closer we get to know the truth of that sentence, the closer I feel we get to wisdom, that which has real value in life in any millennium is very simple, very deep, and very simple. It happens inside of us, in the essential invisible part of us, and that is what allows everyone to be a potential neighbor. The urge to make and build seems to be an almost universal human characteristic. It goes way beyond meeting our need for survival, and seems to be the expression of some deep-rooted part of being human. But we don't have to understand all of someone else's creative efforts. What's important is that we communicate our respect for their attempts to express what's inside themselves. As different as we are from one another, as unique as each one of us is, we are much more the same than we are different. That may be the most essential message of all, as we help our children grow toward being caring, compassionate, and charitable adults. Imagine what our real neighborhoods would be like if each of us offered, as a matter of course, just one kind word to another person. There have been so many stories about the lack of courtesy, the impatience of today's world, road rage, and even restaurant rage. Sometimes all it takes is one kind word to nourish another person. Think of the ripple effect that can be created when we nourish someone. One kind, empathetic word has a wonderful way of turning into many. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I am always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world. You don't ever have to do anything sensational for people to love you. When I say it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can ever see or hear or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humankind cannot survive. Love that conquers hate, peace that rises triumphant over war, and justice that proves more powerful than greed. So in all that you do, in all of your life, I wish you the strength and the grace to make those choices which will allow you and your neighbor to become the best part of who you are. I consider that what I do through Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is my ministry. A ministry doesn't have to be only through a church or even through an ordination. And I think we all